Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of TILLY, the interactive lupus link for you. I'm Marisa, your host, and TILLY is brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of New England. This week, I am so excited to bring our guest, Robert Williams, here to introduce to all of you. So, Robert, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. My name is Robert Williams, as Marisa introduced me. I'm a 51-year-old African-American male. I was diagnosed with lupus 10 years ago. It'll be 10 in November 2011. I'm a social worker for the city of Pawtucket, Rhode Island. I stay active, and that's what keeps my mind off the lupus piece. I have several doctors that I see. I see them every 6 months, so I pay attention to what they have to say. But most importantly for me, and not knowing any males that have lupus and not being engaged with anybody. I'm not on social media. I don't, indulge in on the lupus part. That is part of me, but I don't let that consume me. But with that said, I listen to my body. I'm very active. I was a college athlete. I played basketball, which I still continue to do at 51. With my doctor's blessing and the Lord up above, I continue to do so. And I think that's the most important part and piece of me. Basketball is life. Life is basketball to me. So if I'm not competing, I'm refereeing. I referee high school, ages 18 to 14. I also do the young kids, boys, girls. There's no discrimination now. But my main goal is not just refereeing and out there and just running around with a 15-year-old male that has lupus. My thing is the exercise, the working. It keeps me going daily, and I am remembered of the lupus piece because it's in my family. I have two sisters that were diagnosed at an early age of 18, so I somewhat knew what was going on when I was diagnosed. So we'll go back to the 10 years when I was first diagnosed. I was working out. I probably played 6 hours of basketball in that day. And then the last piece, when I was finishing, I had showered up and I went to go jump into my SUV, and I cramped up from head to toe. I had no idea what was going on. I just figured as I was dehydrated, so I just tried to stay still. I did a lot of rescue breathing. I'm a father of 3, so I'm kind of used to doing that. So for 2 hours, I did that, and I would say 2 hours because I remember my first call from my phone to when I woke up 2 hours later, and I understood what was going on. I was able to speak. I was able to drive. I got right to a hospital, and I got one call back. And the only callback was the Attorney General of Rhode Island, which is a good friend of mine, family member, and he met me at the hospital. So we had a series of tests done, and the doctors were looking at me and then looking at him. And by the way, you see I'm African American. The friend that showed up at the hospital, I called 3 family members. He's Caucasian. So they're looking at the both of us like, can I, indulge any information? Obviously, we would, go forward. We want to know what's going on here. So my scores were so high that they thought I ran a marathon. So they asked me what I did today, and I let my friend do most of the speaking because I knew something was serious and I wasn't into really. So I just wanted to listen and hear what they had to say. So my scores were very high. I didn't really eat much that day that I can think of. Anything solid, substantial. It was just fruit, muffins, because I didn't like to eat too much and work out. So, but as I said, I was working out 6 hours in that course of that day, probably even more. I'm just balancing it on 6 hours. So they just said they thought I had ran a marathon. That's what my test scores were. So they just told me, no, he's very active in sports. And, today he definitely, was doing maybe too much and not hydrated enough or didn't eat enough. So I was tested, and it took them 2 weeks. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and they still didn't know. So they're assuming that I had a kidney issue. So the test came back. They did a biopsy while I was in the hospital on my kidneys, and I was diagnosed with FSG, so focal segmental glomerulus of the liver. So I'm assuming I don't even drink that much. I said, is that about drinking? Is it something? No, it just happens, and you're lucky that we diagnosed that area first and foremost. So once that was done, they still didn't say I had lupus. They knew of my history, and I told them a couple people in the family had history, the cancer, um, hypertension, all that. So it all came. But I said the one thing about me though is I've always worked out my whole life. There's no it's a lifestyle of mine, and it is now, and it continues to be. Um, so it took them a while. That's the piece from the time I was diagnosed with the FSG to lupus. They didn't really know what was going on.
So thank you for sharing a little bit of that. I just want to ask you a question because I have a couple questions I want to get through with you during the interview. So I'm just curious, you mentioned your sisters, which I didn't know that before the interview. So you were already somewhat familiar with lupus. When you look back to that point when you were in the hospital and you look back before that, do you ever notice that maybe you had some signs or symptoms that maybe you overlooked or you just didn't think about at the time? Or do you feel like it just sort of came on out of nowhere?
No, I thought I had a rash. I would say the rash probably started when I was probably like 12 years old when I was competing in football. And you know the jocks that they would give you that you would buy at the store, they would give me a rash on the corners inside my groin area. So I was always prescribed some ointments, whatever, and one of them turned white on one side, the other one went away, and then one side stayed the same, and it was always somewhat irritable. You know, and my sisters had the rash on the face. So I didn't know if the rashes could be anywhere else. Seeing mine wasn't visible, and I was still competing at a high level. As I said, I played in college, and I always maximized my body to the fullest. Not to the point where what happened to me that I just cramped up. That never happened before. So, and with that said, now that when I cramp up, I think about that time when I was all by myself, done my workout, done like 6 hours of it by myself. And that's never happened before. I mean, I've cramped up and it's gone away. This it stayed with me. And I don't remember the 2 hours or how I did it. And it was amazing because even my kidney doctor says the same thing. I have a good rapport with him. He has soon retired now, but I've dealt with 3 lupus doctors going on my 10 years, and that's been a frustrating piece. With that piece being that I knew that I was so healthy at that point, and then that something like that came up, but I never saw any of the signs. I always worked out. I thought I was always just tired. I thought just the activity had my bones, because I know that's part of it also, the bones, the tiredness. And then now the doctors are telling me, you got to stay out of the sun. You got to stay out of the winter weathers. Can't be playing much in there. And then in the snow. That was never me anyway from day one. So what I need from my lupus doctors is to tell me going forward, how can I, Robert Williams, last from 51 years old, I want to go to 80 and keep going. And as I said, this lupus thing, it's a part of me, but I don't feel it. And I don't feel any different from 10 years ago. I don't feel any. And I tell the doctors that I'm still, luckily, knock on wood, still able to work out at 51. When I say work out, I play basketball. I don't lift weights. I don't do anything. I think, I work at my cardio. I'm a cardio person. I do walking. And just to not overdo it, I don't play a lot of basketball. Let's not, skip that straight. I'm 51 years old, so I don't play a lot of it. So I do enough to keep me involved with basketball. I do the walking piece. I swim a little bit, just a little of that stuff to keep me going and just keep my mind off the lupus piece, because the lupus piece, I'm still puzzled by the whole thing. And my sisters would never come on and do any of this stuff. They would never talk about it. Just for them, it's just not a thing that they did or do now.
Well, everyone certainly handles it differently. I have to say, you look incredible for 51.
Thank
I
you.
definitely did not think that you were 51 years old. But so I'm curious, since you were actually diagnosed, if you could share with everyone, do you live with specific symptoms on a regular basis? Is there an organ or an area that the lupus specifically attacks in your body? Have you been on medication? I'm just curious what your journey's been like for these past 10 years.
Yes, yeah. I talked about the piece of the rash that's in the groin area on my left-hand side. So that's not visible to the public, so no one would know unless I showed you. But I feed it with an ointment, and I say I feed it because it's weird. It grows and it goes down. It grows, it goes down, and the heat and then the extreme cold, and it's like it makes it itchy. I scratch it. So it's a constant reminder that I have lupus, because that's where they diagnosed me. That's where they did the biopsy. But as I said, I'm 51. I had that same rash when I was 12 years old. So
Wow.
It took an episode until I was 41 to get to this point where we're at today. So I mean, I don't let it get to me at all. I just keep going.
It sounds like you live a very fulfilling and active life, which I love.
Yes.
It is hard for some people that have like moderate to severe lupus, like even just simple activities of daily living, like showering or cooking, can sort of take all their energy out. But I think it's really important when you're not in a flare, where you do have a little bit of extra energy, to stay active, even if it's just walking, and you've discussed it with your doctor and they're okay with that. But I'm curious, how did you feel like when you first found out that you had lupus? Did you go online? Did you try to do any research? And what was it like? Because the lupus world, even though men and women both get lupus, the lupus world tends to focus more on women. And sometimes it's misstated that it's a women's only disease, which is not true. Did you feel like the information you found or the stuff online was more geared towards women?
No, I wouldn't say it was geared towards women, but it didn't give me enough information to, make me, I'm the person that's living with lupus, and all these doctors are telling me, the lupus piece. I read up on it. As I said, my sisters have it. I know a little bit of it, but I never thought that I even had it. I mean, I go 110% every time I'm out on the hardwood. When I referee daily if I could now. With the COVID, I would referee. And even now, so we're staying dormant, and that's one of the things that with lupus, and that's why I don't have a problem talking about it, because I see a lot of people, and mostly all women. I don't know any males. No one's talk to me about it, any males that I know of anyway. So that's fine too. I'm not going to research it. I'm not going to go looking for anyone. That's just not me. I'm not on social media. So I just go through my family, myself, and my doctors. And I think I'm just very fortunate enough that they caught it at a time, and mostly is the kidney disease that concerns me more so than the lupus piece, because as I said, I haven't felt any different. But once I had that episode, I don't ever want to have that episode again, and that's what led to the pieces for the lupus. But that didn't take it didn't take 2 weeks, it didn't take 2 months. It took about a year or so for them to actually say that that's what it was. It was lupus. You have the area. You're always going to have the FSG. I'm on one med. I'm on two medicines. I never took pills before too. That's an adjustment period of mine too. So I take them at night instead of in the morning. I'm not going to be swallowing pills. So I'm only on 2 pills and a couple of iron pills, just because I wasn't fully understanding what was going on with my body. Then they ask me questions. I'm not really a milk drinker, orange juice, any of that stuff. I'm just wine and water. And then that's what keeps me going, and that's what kept me going forward from that day that I was diagnosed until now. And to this day, I'm still puzzled. Not that why I have it. Now that I'm living with lupus, why was I chosen? Right? But I think also too, I'm the one who can speak on it. Because my family would never speak on this. They would never. they'll support me 100%. I'm a chairperson. I don't know if Jen told you, I'm a chairperson at the Rhode Island chapter here in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. 9 years of doing a walk, and we get a great turnaround. But I get every year, what is lupus? And Robert, they look at me, and you can't tell. I mean, before I used to have here, a little bit of here, but once I was gone, that's nothing. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of females in this course of my 10 years, and it's been debilitating to them. Obviously women, you're looking, and not even just women, men also. You're looking at your face, and you have a rash on your face. That's debilitating. Then you have to take steroids just to try and calm it down, and it just somewhat makes it worse for them. So they shut down, and that's the worst piece. When I talk to people, but how can I tell them? But as I said, sports, I feel like that's a lifestyle of mine. That doesn't ring a bell to everyone. So some of the women or the young teenagers that I've seen, they don't want to go to school. They don't want to be out in public. They're afraid of the extreme temperature. I'm not afraid of it. Obviously, you see how dark I am. My skin is. I just know how it is. 41 years, I never used to have sunscreen, and I tell this people all the time. I never used sunscreen because I was never one to go to the beach and just bathe in the sun. So now I have to do that. I mean, I'll do it because I want to live. I have children. I want 40 more years if I can, or more. So right. now I do that, and that's just one of the things I go. But obviously, I just don't let lupus consume me.
Well, you certainly have a very positive, upbeat attitude, which I love, and I love the fact that you still keep sports as a part of your life, because for some people, sports are an impossibility depending on how severe the lupus is. But I think it's really important to have something in your life that keeps you busy, keeps your mind off of it, something that you love to do, brings you hope, brings you enjoyment. So you said you are a social worker, and I'm just curious to touch on that piece a little bit. What advice would you have to maybe someone who's newly diagnosed and is maybe struggling about, how this is going to change his or her life, or maybe is feeling depressed or sad about having a very unexpected diagnosis? What would you say to someone like that?
Well, I've had said to mostly women, as I said, that I've talked to, it's debilitating, and then it's tough. And then you know what? Those feelings, those are normal. Those are normal feelings, because when you get lupus, and a lot of people don't really know what it is. They think it's a death sentence. Not anything close. But it's just once you get it, it's what you do with it. You're paying attention to yourself. Are you paying attention to your doctors? You're not cheating yourself by not taking your meds. And it's not easy. And I see it. And I see it. I work with young disabled and elderly people. So there's a lot of hypertension in here with the people that I work with. I see a lot of them are walking. That's beautiful. That's something that I mean, we don't have a walking club here. They do it on their own. I don't have to exercise, with them. I talk to them, and I try not to tell them that I have lupus until they come in my office and see a couple of things here and there, and they'll ask questions. I don't go around telling people I have lupus. I let them know that. And then, like yourself, you said this is the first time you've met me, and you were like unbelievable that 51-year-old male, has lupus. But I always have to go back, and then also to my childhood too, where I was always active. My mom kept me out of the house, not on a tablet. I wasn't, like my children now. You got to pull the tablet out of their hands and their phones. I'm not that much savvy, nor do I want to be that much savvy. I'm here with you at work now, but it's just a part of life now, the lupus piece. And then I just hope, I can help any others. Not that they're going to be like me in this, because I've seen it devastating to the women. I've seen it, and I can't really tell them you need to get out and start working out, because that's not the right words to say to them. You just encourage them, say, hey, we're in the same boat. I have the same. I can tell them my story. You can take bits and pieces what I tell you or what I've told you. I'm not here to preach to anyone, because we're all different. But I just hope you just don't stay dormant. Don't let it get you. You got to get out there. You got to exercise. You got to exercise your brain, your joints, because that's where it'll eat up at you. Once you stay dormant, and it will start inflaming your knees, your elbows. And at 51, I have bad knees now, but I'm hoping it's not the lupus piece. It's just me, man. Maybe doing too much, but I listen to my body now. It's a great time to swim. With this COVID stuff now, you can still get out and walk. I do that, and then refereeing that's like the last piece now with the COVID. I haven't done much of that, so I've done a lot of walking, and I just try to stay active, and that's what I just tell the people: just try and stay active if you can. But it's hard, and I understand, and I just say hey, I understand you, because sometimes I do think about it. I just say, why me? But then I go with it.
Well, you said something that really stuck out, and that was to listen to your body. It's really important to just listen to your body. And so for people that maybe can't play basketball or things like that, I always share with them, go on YouTube. There's 5-minute exercise videos that you can actually do from bed. You can do sitting in a chair, because maybe not everyone is at the same level, but it just helps you in some way. I think it also, as you know, physical activity causes certain brain chemicals that can help with our mood, because it's really easy with lupus. And if you're not feeling well, if you're in pain, for your mind to sort of stay on that and to maybe go into a very negative space. So I think it's, another reason to try to stay somewhat active. And like you said, keep your brain busy, however you find is the best way for you. Now, I know you're not a social media person, but the great thing about social media and videos like this is I've met a few men over the last 20 years since I was diagnosed that have lupus. And I think it's a little bit harder for them to connect. Most of the men that I know just maybe don't put themselves out there as much as the females do, and that's fine. But I think videos like this and being able to hear you and hear your story and see you as a role model, it really gives them the opportunity to know that they're not by themselves. They're not alone. There are other men out there that have lupus. You're living your best life. You obviously have a family. You're keeping active. You're happy. You have a great attitude. I'm curious, you had made a quick mention earlier. I'm curious about like your spiritual life, how that sort of blends into everything. If you can maybe give us a minute or two about that, because I think that's also really important for your mind frame.
I'm not one to sit in church on Sundays. I lost my parents when I was in college, so the depth of that really rung a bell. I'd rather see them at the gravesite than go to a church and pray on it. I was always like that, and I was fortunate enough to go to a Catholic school. So I went 4 years of Catholic school, always believed in God, even to this day. And even with the diagnosis, I said, well, maybe I was the person in the family to bring it out and let people know and bring the awareness out to those and speak to the. I already told you about the women that it's debilitating to them, because obviously for a woman and having it on your face and having discolored, I've seen discolored faces, deformed faces from women, and I would want to hide too and just and stay in a closet. But I think if you do that, then lupus is going to beat you and it's going to consume you. So that's why I was fortunate enough, to have the athletic background in that piece, and that's what drives me to this point. So the religion part, I don't really, get on religion. I am Baptist. I was married in a Catholic church. I went to a Catholic high school, but I don't know if religion plays a huge part in my life. My sisters, on the other hand, they're down south where the weather is nice and warm. They moved a couple of years ago, unfortunately for me, but they live down there where the weather is very nice. Where here we have the 4 seasons. In New England, as you know, it can drive you crazy, but I've been born and raised on it. So, I know how to adapt to the extreme cold, or to, like as in today, the 98-degree weather. I'm inside speaking with you, and I'm fortunate enough, and I say this because you say work. I'm fortunate enough to have a desk job. So I'm inside, I'm a computer. Not everyone is fortunate who has lupus. Maybe they, they don't have the education, or that they were young, never finished school. They're working outside or a manual labor, which I couldn't do that. And I know I could tell you this right now. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do construction. I can't be outside. And that's a piece that lupus, plays a part in my life. So
absolutely.
I answered the part, but the religion piece is huge.
Oh yeah, I just like to ask people, like, where do you get your strength from? Some people get it from their spirituality. Some people have amazing friends and family that support them. Some people are just more resilient, and they just don't give in. They keep pushing forward even in the face of an extreme challenge like lupus. But like you said, we all have different jobs, we all have different symptoms, we all have different levels of the disease. I think the important thing is to share our stories, let people know that they're not alone. Our stories all look different, but we all understand, getting that diagnosis, what that was like, the struggle, and trying to just live our best life out, even though we have a chronic illness. So I really appreciate you coming on this episode of Tilly. Before we sign off. Oh yeah, absolutely. If there's anything else that you wanted to add, I'll let you sign us off with that.
No, I'm pretty much comfortable on what I had said, and hopefully, it catches everybody and teaches everyone that lupus is just something that you were diagnosed with. It's just not, it's not a death sentence at all. And you can plug. For me, it's the athletic piece. Go walking. That's one of the peaceful things. I mean, the people see me walking myself, and I should be jogging, they would think, but I can't jog. One, because if I'm jogging too much, that's just going to hurt too much for me. So I know the piece in me is to go walking. Grab your headset and go for a 6-mile walk or whatever it may be. And it just keeps your mind off of lupus. My thing is I try not think about the lupus piece, but we are, as a chairperson for a Lupus Foundation walk here, and like you said earlier about your friends and your family, we have a good crowd of a couple of hundred people every year that come. This past year, unfortunately, with the COVID, we couldn't do it. So I had 1 million calls, and I'm not even on social media. Everyone's calling me, texting me. I'm like, I'm at work. I can't. So obviously, you're not going to have the walk this year. It's unfortunate. We're not going to do it this year. And then next year, hopefully, it's bigger and better, because now people are, we're going on our 9th year with this skip. It's going to be the 9th year. It would have been 10 next year, but hey. It happens. Like the diagnosis of lupus for me, it just happened. And
hopefully, support is huge, and that's why another reason I love the Lupus Foundation of New England. They have amazing walks and conferences and symposiums and great social media connections. So for the people out there who are maybe newly diagnosed and are looking for that support, definitely check out the Lupus Foundation of New England. And we just want to thank you, Robert, for coming on today and chatting with us and just being an amazing role model. So we wish you best of health. Keep crushing it on the basketball court and refereeing and staying active. And it was awesome to talk to you. So I want to thank everyone for being with us on this episode of Tilly, the interactive lupus link for you. These episodic series are brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of New England. You can check out their website at lfne.org. My name is Marisa. Some of you might already know me as a LupusChick. I am excited to show you another episode next week, so stay tuned, and I hope you all have an incredible week. Thank you.